And here, our guest speaker today is Ryan. And Ryan was on the course in August last year. So, almost full circle a year later. Where is he now? No, Ryan's here to share a bit of his story. And I know he's got some slides to speak through. So I might just hand it straight over to you, Ryan, and then we can go through some questions and at the end, perhaps. So if you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat. Think of them as you go. And over to you, Ryan. All yours.
Cool, awesome. No, thanks, Amber. Okay, I'll try to share my screen now. Hopefully this works. Cool. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, it's all good. We can see it. Perfect.
So hi everyone. My name is Ryan, and currently working as a Salesforce consultant at SmartApps. So I pretty much joined SmartApps right after I finished the course, which was about 6 months ago, so February this year. And before before my Salesforce career, I spent about 8 years working as a electrical and automation engineer in the energy and manufacturing industry. So today I'll just be sharing how I made a career transition into Salesforce and what it's like working as a Salesforce consultant. Next slide. So I'll just share a bit about how I actually found out about Salesforce. So one of my interests is actually investing and financial independence. So I listened to this podcast called Choose FI. So about 3 years ago, I actually came across this episode. Don't know if you can see my cursor. Oh yeah. So I actually came across this episode where this guy in the US, right? He's working in the Salesforce ecosystem, and he went into part time just to spend a bit more time with his family and his daughter, and he ended up actually doubling his salary with half of the hours. And he mentioned that he was doing Salesforce, so I got a bit curious, but I didn't really think about too much at that time. And then last year, they did another episode where it's this one here where they had a hospitality staff who got laid off, and because of the pandemic, and decided to start learning Salesforce, and actually ended up doing quite well, earning over 100K for her first job. So one of my colleagues at the time, ex-colleagues now, he also listens to this podcast and actually convinced me to go to one of the Amber's seminars. And I remember quite clearly that one of the guest speakers was Bill Wu. So he's actually my colleague now. And at the time, I remember his background was in Spanish, and he's got like over 30 certifications. So I was just like, oh wow, this guy is amazing. And he hasn't actually been in the Salesforce industry for that long. So that actually, inspired me quite a bit. And just knowing that, with all these stories, you don't actually need to have a software engineering background or computer science to actually get a job in tech or in Salesforce. So yeah, I decided to sign up for Amber's course, and then I broke my finger just before I started the course. So yeah, this was me last year on the 2nd of August. So started the course. Yeah, I was on a high note. So I had to basically type and sleep with my splint arm for about 3 months on my index finger. So that was quite memorable. Right. So next slide. So what does it look like for me on a daily on a day-to-day basis working as a Salesforce consultant? So I would say I spend about 30% just talking with my clients, our clients, and 30% documentation, and about 40% doing implementation and figuring out what I need to do. And so things like, requirement gathering, working with clients to set up workshops, figuring out what they want from the Salesforce side and their business processes and requirements. And then I'll go and work with other consultants and developers to work out what sort of solution that we need to come up with, and spend quite a bit of time configuring, things like sharing, security, your profiles, permission sets, data model, things like your, master detail relationships, all the fields, formulas as such, dealing with support tickets from our clients, a bit of project management. So doing estimates for the work and just keeping the client in a loop as to what we are doing, things like when we're going for deployment, and what sort of, if there's a change in requirements, just generally just keeping the client a loop, and keeping that good communication going. And I also spent quite a bit of time developing testing plans and deployment plan for my projects. So figuring out what requirements I need to be testing for and all the scenarios, just making sure that whatever changes that we are making, it does work and it doesn't affect the existing org and functionalities. Um, and as SmartApps, we use Jira to run our projects. So I've spent a bit of time breaking down client requirements into individual tickets, and also assigning tickets to other members of the project team. And after an implementation, I also spent quite a bit of time developing training and documentation for the clients, so they know that how to drive it from their side, and if there's any questions, they can, go through the documentations first before sending us emails. And learning, yeah, that's probably quite a big part of my day. So I'm quite new to the job, so there's a lot of learnings to be made. So yeah, some of my project highlights. So I've mainly been working with Wellington kindergartens. So they are basically an organization that it's quite a big org. They've got about 800 Salesforce users. So that's all the teachers and support staff in the Wellington region, and also in Wanganui and Horowhenua. So basically Lower South Island. So just a bit of background in their org. So they use Salesforce to manage a lot of their day-to-day tasks. So things like HR, everyone's current position, past position, and what kindergarten the staff works for, and how long they've been in each position. Things like fan rounds. So um, they've got quite a few events that they use to pick up their children from home to kindergarten and from kindergarten to home. So we use field services Lightning to display each van run in real time, so that the parents know where their kids are and at any given time. And they also use Salesforce to handle their courses, so such as learning and development. So staff can book their training like first aid, mental health on a website that's powered by Salesforce Experience Cloud. And then case management, which is what I've been working on for the past few months, and also conference management. So basically, with case management, so in addition to managing teachers, they are also involved in social services for children. So things like they've got a few initiatives going, and one of them is what they call engaging priority families, which is basically an initiative to help kindergarten kids, so age, I don't know, 3 to 6, to help them attend kindergarten, and I'll go into a bit more details later about this. So conference management. So I actually deployed this 2 days ago, so it's still quite fresh on my mind. So every year they have an annual conference where all the teachers will attend. So in the past, they used to print out 800 flyers and had to send out course details to every staff. So it was actually quite time consuming and quite, I guess, expenses as well, having to pay for courier and print out all the details and everything. So this year we've helped them to develop a similar system to their course management system, where staff can go on a website powered by Experience Cloud and select the sessions that they want to attend in the conference, and then and things like if they are keen to go to the celebration dinner, they can register there as well and include their data requirements and things like that. And then after their registration, they'll get a confirmation email with QR code, which they can bring to them on the day for check-in. So yeah, that's Wellington Kindergartens. MPI, we've submitted a few proposals, proof of concept orgs for their food safety and future certification project. I'll go into these a bit more later as well. So yeah, over the past 6 months, I've learned quite a few different um, parts of the Salesforce technology, things like Experience Cloud, Service Cloud, public sector solutions, and grant management, which is what the government can use to manage their grants, such as if you've got like a non decarbonization grant, which you want to um, give the funds to the business to implement their decarbonization projects. They can use this to manage the entire life cycle. And things like Jira, Bitbucket, and source-driven development and VS Code, which I'll get into in a bit as well. So next slide. So yeah, how did the course prepare me for my projects? So I would say really well, because so you can see that this is actually the first flow that I had to build for my project, and this is probably spent. So I started in about February, end of February, and had to build this quite quick. So probably within a month, and this is only a small piece of the project as well. So it looks quite complex, but it's actually not as bad as it looks. So basically I think when I was doing this, I started to remember all the things and bits and pieces I learned from the course. So things like important concepts like flow, validation rules, security and sharing, profile and permission sets. And I would say I learned quite a lot from just the Ken Statham project. How to break down actually quite a big requirement down to small and tiny pieces of the puzzle, and how to problem solve, and how to actually find the answers on Google. I think for me, Googling is probably quite important skill to have. Just knowing what keywords to use and how to refine your keywords to find the answers that you need. And so just to go a bit more about what I was actually doing here. I think these are might be a bit hard to see, but basically this is for the case management project. So so you've got the web browser, which is powered by the Experience Cloud, and you've got the Salesforce side. So someone who wants to find out a bit more how Wellington Kindergarten can help their children to attend kindergarten can go to the web browser and fill in this form here. So it records information like who's the primary caregiver and the contact details and a bit of information about the children. And on the Salesforce side, once they've submitted the form, we create a contact, a case, and also a service enrollment record. And also we utilize the Salesforce non-for-profit functionality to record the relationship as well. So we know who this primary caregiver is in relation to the child. And then this flow basically makes it happen in the background, creating contacts, service records, and things like that. I think one of the challenges with this is that there are many services that the children can enroll in. So engaging priority families is only one of them. They've got other service lines like community connections. So the hard bit was duplicate management. So when someone submits a form, you don't want to be creating a contact every time, creating a service record every time, creating a case and linking that to a new contact every time. So we spent quite a bit of time figuring out how we can manage the duplicates and knowing when the same contact submits another form for another service, we can identify that and actually relate the new case records, service records to the same contact. So instead of creating a new account, a new contact every time that someone submits the form. So yeah, that's a bit about what I've done for my first project. So because some of the services that they are involved with are quite, I would say, quite privacy, quite confidential, because there are things such as like family violence cases and things like that. So it's for this org, the security part is quite important. So with having 800 people in this org, it's quite important to set out your sharing rules, your security, your field level security sharing rules correct, so that only the right people with the right profiles and permission sets so that only the right people can access the right information. Oh, I've got a question here.
Do you want to just read it out, Ryan?
All right. So yeah, I got an email from the product manager that we are moving to Omi Studio for our next release. They will be upskilling us in that. Can you please give a brief overview on exactly what it does? Yeah. So good timing. That's what I'm actually going to be talking about next. So this was probably the second project that I was working on. So it's working on a proof of concept for MPI. So this one here, I'll just go to my notes. So the challenges that they have at the moment is every time you do an import or export from importer or exporter, they need to submit quite a few different forms. And at the moment, the forms are sort of all over the place. So MPI doesn't have a system where it contains all the information or source of truth. So they wanted they wanted us to put together a concept so that they can have a place where it stores all the information on the exporters, importers, and also their certification details. So for this, we leveraged Omi Studio and Experience Cloud. So Omi Studio is basically it's quite new to me as well. I'll try to explain it. So Omi Studio is basically a tool that within Salesforce that you can use to provide a guided experience for the users. So such as this one here, the users can basically go on to a website with a form embedded in it, and then here will guide the users through the process, and they can fill in the details. And in the background, we've got stuff happening, things like data raptors, integration procedures, things like that to handle the data and produce records. So this is what the user will see on the experience side. They'll go on here, they can see their certificates they've submitted in, and then they've got tiles here where they can click and this will lead them into the forms that they need to fill in. And after they fill in the form, you'll see a page with all their details and the information they've entered. And internally, the MPI staff will be able to manage all the applications here, and this is all implemented using standard functionalities. And they can go into each certification and actually see what they've entered there, and move through the stages and get a bit more details from the applicant if required. So yeah, that's about so that's the POC that we've built. And yeah, this was quite new to me, and learning Omi Studio and a lot of the details, a lot of the functionalities within Omi Studio. So I think, although I didn't quite learn this on the course, but I was able to develop, I guess, the problem-solving skills, just knowing what keywords I need to find, and what sort of what sort of learning path I need to get myself onto to be able to learn this quite quickly. So basically, before starting this, I knew that I was going to use Omi Studio, so I spent quite a bit of time just figuring out what exactly I need to learn, so that I learn just enough to be able to implement, because a lot of the time doing implementation is the time that you know what the knowledge gap is, and from there I will go and do a bit more research. And next slide. So this is what I do quite a bit as well. A lot of planning and documentation. So this is sort of what I do for my deployment plan, testing plan, and also my implementation notes, and user training manuals. And this is the Jira tickets, breaking down into each individual requirements. So I remember when I was doing the real life project during the course, I would actually write down all my implementation steps for every single changes that I've made, and I'm actually doing it. I'm doing the same with my all my Salesforce projects and SmartApps, and it's been working out quite well so far, because what tends to happen quite a bit is the project could run for 1 or 2 months, and towards the end of the project, I would have forgotten what I've actually done in the beginning. So when the issues do come up, I could usually go back to my notes and just recall what was actually implemented. So yeah, I would say planning helps quite a lot, and it does help. It helps me in a way that I was able to, when things do go wrong, I can look at the plans that I've done and quickly calm myself down and knowing what actually went wrong, and I've got a lot of notes behind it to help me problem solve. Cool. Next slide is so. Oh yeah, source-driven development. So this was quite new to me as well. I had to basically learn it in the first 2 weeks on the job. Um, so so it's basically it's quite like for me it was quite a quite a good concept to learn because we have multiple people working on the same project. So we are using source-driven development so we can integrate easily with each other and also just be able to test and deliver changes easily and quickly. So I had to learn a lot of the VS Code commands and actually learn about the remote repositories and local and all of that kind of good stuff. But yeah, managed to get through it. So that was something quite good to learn. Next slide. So yeah, talking about career change. So before my Salesforce career, I was an electrical engineer. So the last job I had was actually in an engineering consultancy where I had to lead a lot of detailed design, manage deliverables for quite complex projects. So I've just included some photos, and when I was doing the slide, it brings back some good and bad memories. So here's basically um, a, a massive um, gas turbine with all the instruments and details and oh, going, going too far. And then these were some of the commissioning plans that I used to have to write, and some of the research I had to make to figure out how some of the components work. So I guess one of the big reasons why I include this is because um, as I was doing a career change, I was facing quite a lot of dilemma. So because I was about 8 years into my career, so that actually makes a career change sort of quite challenging and difficult. And so these were some of the challenges that I was actually facing. So like I said, I was quite well into my engineering career, and I was earning quite a decent salary, and I didn't want to take a pay cut when I was making a career change. Um, so in order for me to do that, I basically need to prove that I've got the skills required, and I've got the skills required, and also the transferable skills that I can leverage into my Salesforce career. So I basically I actually did a skill map, which I'll share a bit later. And some of the challenges are things like finding a job with a similar skill set. Um, so so this is probably one of the reasons why I decided to go with a consultancy, which is an environment that I was sort of familiar with, being an engineering consultant for a few years, and also future proof. So I wanted a career that's sort of recession and future proof, similar to engineering. And so I did a bit of research around Salesforce, and all my research today is sort of pointing towards the direction that Salesforce is future-proof in a way that they are acquiring a lot of companies, and some of these companies will be around for a long time, and also the transferable skills that you can pick up from just working in the Salesforce industry is quite important. So things like your business and analysis skills, working with clients, gathering requirements, and a lot of the configurations, and just building up that mindset where you can learn to where you can learn to basically develop a lot of skills that's quite new to you. Um, so yeah, that's one of the challenges that I was facing when I was doing my research, just when before I decided to change my career. And one big thing is probably work-life balance. So I wanted, a bit more flexibility and time for family. And it's quite funny because after I've switched my career into Salesforce, I would say it's a lot less stressful. Comparing to my previous roles. So my previous roles was dealing with a lot of construction work and also a lot of the design decisions that you make today can actually impact the health and safety of the construction workers and operators. So that was one of the reasons why I was, getting quite tired and quite stressed out for my previous job. Um, and Salesforce, I think a lot of the companies that are in the Salesforce industry, they are stressing this work-life balance. Um, they really stress this, and they actually provide you with a lot of flexibility and options. So at the moment, I'm mainly working from home. I travel down to Wellington once every 2 weeks, so that's free up a lot of my travel time for me and for my family. Uh, Next slide. Right, skill mapping. So this was sort of what I had to do before I, decided to go 100% into Salesforce. So what I've done is engineering side and the skills I've learned from the course, and this is the skills that that I think at the time that's required in Salesforce. So things like ability to learn and apply. So on the Salesforce side, when you go on to interviews, it's probably quite important to to at least demonstrate that you've got you're curious about new concepts. You're curious about you enjoy learning and enjoying being to apply what you've learned. So yeah, that's ability to learn and apply. Next one is project management, client relationships. So I spend quite a bit of time, at least 30% of the time, just working with clients, figuring out exactly what they need, and um, and also when things do go wrong, or when there's a requirement that might be a bit more difficult to meet within the timeline given, it's good to draw upon my previous experience dealing with clients and explain to them um, what the what the what the background is and why certain things might be difficult to implement. And most people are actually quite they are quite sort of once you've explained the issues to them, they are quite understanding. And next thing is Salesforce knowledge. So so it's also quite important that during the interview you demonstrate that you know a lot about declarative solution design, things like object relationships, validation rules, and flow. Um, and um, and during job interviews, it's important to provide examples and stories on how your past experience can be leveraged into Salesforce. So I think this works. So this actually works for people with all sorts of different backgrounds. You don't need to be coming from a technical background like engineering. You can actually be a uni student. You can draw upon your course experience. Like you can say, back in uni, I had to cram my study. I had to study four papers, and I had to learn a lot of new concepts within 1 or 2 weeks. So that you can basically leverage that in your interview as well. And there's always going to be a bit of project management and client relationships during your uni projects as well. You need to work with your with your teammates, and you gotta work with your lecturers and potential project sponsors. And 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 yeah, so yeah, probably quite a big believer that you can come from different backgrounds. As long as you have the right mindset, you can leverage in, you can transition into a Salesforce career without any issues. Um, and right, job preparing for job interviews. So these were some of the things that I was sort of uh, preparing myself before I prior to all my interviews. So the first thing is probably stories. So I always prepare a few stories um, for the interview just to back up my statement. So for example, if I said that I'm able to learn things quite quickly and I'm quite curious about learning new things, that statement by itself um, doesn't really doesn't really demonstrate your ability to do this. So what I usually do in the interview is that I actually tell them a story where, you know, at a time where I had when I was doing when I was working part time or when I was working full time and doing a part time course, I had to, do this real life project where I had to learn, validation rules, object relationships, and stuff like that, implemented very quickly. Um, and basically using similar stories to back up the statement. Demo as well. So during the project, during my interviews, I actually show them my demo for my org, and that worked out quite well because probably one of the best ways to showcase your skill is to actually demo what you've done rather than telling them that you can do it. And next one is lead the conversation. So ensure that you've covered all your stories and experiences during the interview. So a lot of the time, I find that during the interviewer could be asking um, a lot of questions which might not be relevant to the skills that you want to showcase. So it's quite important that when this does happen, you do try um, in those questions where it might not seem very relevant to your skills. You do try, be a bit more proactive and actually try include a few stories in your answers. And next one is probably networking. So joining user groups and just having a conversation with someone that works for the company that you're applying for. So this is actually what I did. So I found Bill on LinkedIn and I had a chat with him prior to the interview, just asking about, what the company culture is like and what it's like working for the company and what sort of projects you've been involved in. So that worked out quite well for me. So Bill ended up being the person that did my technical interview. So knowing Bill beforehand was, I would say, quite uh, maybe less nervous and also probably quite a big plus as well. Um, so, yeah, I think it probably comes down to when you make a career change, it probably comes down to the mindset. So I think a lot of the uh, people are looking for, a lot of the employers are looking for people that are willing to learn new things. So it's quite important to have that growth mindset where when you see a problem instead of saying, oh, this is too high, I can't do it, you switch your mindset and ask yourself the question, how can I actually do this? How can I break a big problem down into individual and small chunks of smaller problems so that you can you can do your Google research, or you can play around in your org figuring out how do I solve small problems first, and once you've solved all the small problems, the big ones will get solved on its own. So quite important to just enjoy the learning process, I guess. And probably quite. I recently read this book called Atomic Habits. So it's all about getting 1% better and having that compounding effects. So things like if you um, if you say to yourself that you're going to do a better day, over a course of a year, you end up with, you know, 300, 300 plus pages easily. But if you were to do this in a week, you'll need to do a lot more. Um, so, yeah, so these are with this, these are all my experiences just during the past 6 months. And yeah, thank you for your time. Any questions?
Well done. Very, very nice. Thank you so much. I think there was a question in the chat from Felix, who was saying, "Hello, Ryan. Can you share how you got the current role? Is it by reaching the company directly or by using a recruitment agency? And if you search for the job, what keywords did you use to search?"
So how I got my current. Oh, Amber actually just Amber actually helped me to get this job. So yeah, that's how I got it.
Yeah.
so um, so yeah, probably yeah again probably comes down to networking as well. Like one of the colleagues that I work with, he he was actually one of Bill's tenants, and he had no sales experience, but Bill, told him about it, and then he decided to learn Salesforce by himself. So he was doing nonstop for a year, and then ended up getting a job as well. And I think he used to sell guns. So so yeah, from all sorts of different backgrounds. So yeah, networking is probably quite important. User group is quite a good place to um, to meet your potential employees as well.
Mm. I think Kyle had another question there saying, "Hello, Ryan. When training users, how do you get past the users who aren't quite getting how to use whatever you have implemented?" I think that's the first question, and then I think there's a second question there about, are you the only one in your company in your role, or do you have colleagues helping you?
Right.
Maybe the first question first.
First question: training users. Um, so yeah, that's a quite a good question because with Wellington kindergartens, a lot of our users were not um, they don't work on their background is in Salesforce, so they are end users, so that they don't understand a lot of the technical terms. So I think one thing that helped me quite a bit to help these users is during these user trainings is I'll try not to use any Salesforce related terms. I'll
Mm,
try find terms that are a bit easier that they are a bit easier to understand and maybe provide an analogy. Like I'll just go back to one of my slides. Um, Probably can't see this, but this is one of the graphs that I did for one of the. They've got an in-house admin there, but the person doesn't have a lot of sales experience. So I basically did our screenshots, explain to them when an applicant fills up a form on the web browser, this is what you'll see. You'll see, a record comes up here, a record comes up on the case, a contact record, and also a relationship record. So I think probably comes down to being a bit more creative as well. So yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah. Next question. Search for the job keywords. All right. So when it comes down to job search, I think a lot of the time, if you are looking for consultant roles, it might actually in the job title, it might not say consultant. It might say Salesforce admin or business analyst. So it's quite important to do a research on what the companies are looking for. It might not. A lot of the Salesforce roles might have strange titles. So what I do is I go on Seek or Indeed and subscribe to their job alerts, and I've been doing that for quite a few years now. Even with my old engineering jobs, I still see them coming up in my mailbox. So that sort of just helps me to know what jobs are going out there and what sort of skills they are looking for. And from there, you can prepare your interviews beforehand because you know what other companies are looking for in terms of skills, and you know what sort of skills are quite valued out there, so you can sort of find your skill gap there and try to improve upon that.
Mm. And it was a second half to the question from Kyle, which said, at the company in your role, or do you have colleagues helping you?
Yeah, now lots of colleagues helping me out. So we've got, I think in the New Zealand division, we've got about 20 Salesforce developers slash consultants. So a lot of, I think for all of my projects, I've always got a lot of help from people with a lot more experience than me. And things like getting the VS Code running and learning actually how things are developed and how all the developers or consultants can work together on a single job without overwriting each other changes. So things like that. It's been quite good just learning knowledge from more experienced people. So yeah.
All right, one from Bagya. Hey Ryan, in your opinion, what type of skills outside of Salesforce knowledge does the Salesforce employer look for in a candidate?
I would say having the mindset to be a passionate learner. I think a lot of the time with my job right now, because I'm quite new, there's a lot of things that I um, that I don't know. So it's quite it's quite important that I guess in the interview to mention to mention that to mention your past learning experience, and also you are to mention that you are probably a type of person that they are not afraid to ask questions, because a lot of the time I think thinking back from my engineering career when I first started as a graduate, I was quite afraid to ask questions because I didn't want other people to know that I didn't know that much. But after working for so many years, you start to understand that actually people, no one can know everything. So it's important to I guess to tell people that what you don't know, so they can actually try to help you and grow. So yeah, I made that mistake in my engineering career, where for the first, I think, a year or two, I didn't really ask them any questions. So I didn't have as much. Yeah, I basically missed a lot of learning opportunities. Yep.
Mm. Awesome. All right, if anyone has any other questions, pop them in because we're coming up on time. Um, I do have to say, Ryan, that flow looks monstrous. Like that is huge. When you see like, oh yeah, this is the first flow I created, I was like what? um,
Yeah. No,
it's
it
huge.
actually started being quite simple, and then it just got more complex as more requirements come in. So yeah, it's
Wow.
not as bad as it looks.
So how was did you plan this all out before you built it, or was it just like an evolution of like
Yeah, it
this
was more of
innate
a
curiosity?
evolution. I think it started out like that, and
Yeah.
then and then all of this will just new requirements and new issues that we found, things like your duplicate management. So when we were testing it, we discovered that actually we did mess this up, because every time uh, someone submits an application, it creates a new contact, and I
Yeah.
was getting and I was yeah so yeah so got into this.
Man, that's super impressive. Very cool. But it's really cool to hear that you're enjoying SmartApps. Do you want to maybe say a bit about SmartApps for those who don't know? Like, what is the company? How big is it? Where are you guys based?
Yeah, sure. So we are a consultancy. So we've got about probably 15 people in the Wellington office. I'm based in Palmy, and there's a person based in Tauranga and a few in Auckland. So people outside the Wellington office are working from home most of the time, but we do come down to the office once every 2 weeks to just to get some face-to-face time. And then we've got a division. We've got our Australian office as well. I think they've got 150 people. And recently we joined the SysMart group as well, which is quite a big IT consultancy. They do all the other IT stuff, things like architectural stuff and other things like Microsoft services. So we joined them to be part of their Salesforce practice.
Very cool. All right, I think last question in here from Dipti, and then we'll wrap it up because that hour just flew by. Dipti's saying, after any implement or changes, did you show it to the manager and get it approved?
So in SmartApps, I think one thing that's really good as well, culture-wise, is there's a lot of trust. So the structure is quite flat actually. So there's no senior titles in everyone is just consultant developer. So that's quite good. So so basically it's you are in charge of your own implementation or projects, but if you have questions, you can always reach out to others, and if you're not sure, you can always ask someone that's more senior than you. I think when I first started the project, for all the commits or pull requests, so for all the changes, there's someone that reviews my changes just to make sure that I'm not sort of not making um, I'm not making like major mistakes, things like that. Because yeah, there's one good thing about source-driven development and VS Code. Someone can see exactly what you've done in the metadata, so that helps with the review process as well.
Very cool. All right, Felix, I can see that one coming in the chat. Just really sneaky at the end. Just curious, can you work in the office every day if you want?
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, there's yeah, of course.
Awesome. All right, well, I think we'll wrap it up there because people. Thank you guys all for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
So good. And I just wanted to say a quick note on actually Verinda's point about Omni Studio. So we're changing up the guest speaker sessions a bit, where every week we're gonna kind of rotate it. So there's going to be a guest speaker, and then I'm going to lead a session on Salesforce updates. So Salesforce is always changing, and I started getting a lot of questions about it. What's the latest? What's coming up? So once a month we're going to do a Salesforce update session, where I'm going to basically provide like what is the latest that's happening in Salesforce and what do you need to be aware of, any tools. Then we'll have another guest speaker. And then the last session of every month is I'll go through a new Salesforce tool. So our first one is actually going to be around Omni Studio and Salesforce Industries. So that fits in perfectly. But we'll rotate that. So, we'll go through Finance Cloud, Marketing Cloud. We'll slowly make our way through them all. So if you have any requests, let me know. But that's just a quick note on that point there. Anyway, thank you so much, Ryan. You're absolutely amazing. Definitely an inspiration to everyone here. Please stay in touch. Would you be okay with people reaching out to you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, feel free.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Well, much love to everyone. Thank you guys for coming along, and have a wonderful Wednesday. Ryan, thank you so much.